Raw Danger is a sequel to a game known as Disaster Report. It all centers around the flooding of a city known as Delray, and much like the previous entry in the series, it tasks you with following several characters as you utilize a whole range of creative survival skills in order to reach the end. Now there are 6 playable characters in total, who each begin their journey at different locations within the city. As you would expect, this results in each of their sections largely differing from each other, but one thing remains the same, and that is the core gameplay. You'll find yourself running, climbing, jumping and crawling your way out of the devastated city, but it's not only traversal that you need to worry about. Your body temperature will slowly deplete the longer you stay out in the cold, resulting in you having to not only find ways in which to keep yourself warm, but also secure food supplies and dry clothes. Now it won't be for everyone, but if you're a fan of the original or survival games as a whole, there's enough on offer here that would warrant a purchase or download. Many incredible 3D platformers released for the PlayStation 2, but like with most consoles, various games can manage to go by largely unnoticed, and Dr. Muto is one of them. It was the first and last attempt by Midway to create a game of this kind, and although it didn't exactly light the world on fire, in my eyes it offered a competent experience that should not be passed up. It sees players taking on the role of Dr. Muto, a rather eccentric scientist who possesses the ability to morph into 5 mutated animals. Throughout the game, enemies will drop items that facilitate your ability to morph, with each of them bringing their own distinct advantage to the table. For example, the small mouse will allow you to explore new areas, whereas the squirrel will grant you the ability to fly. Each of them are integral to progressing through the 22 levels that comprise the adventure. Now ultimately it's a 3D platformer, but at times you'll see yourself plunged into several side-scrolling sections, as well as turret minigames, and many others that add a nice touch of variety to the gameplay. Dr. Muto is well worth picking up if you never got round to playing it when it first released. It's not the best platformer on the system by any means, but one that can confidently stand side by side with its contemporaries. Several survival horror games made an appearance on the PlayStation 2, with the likes of Resident Evil, Silent Hill and Extermination to name a few. There was plenty to play for fans of the genre, but one game that often gets overlooked is Cold Fear. As the player, you fill the shoes of one Tom Hansen, a local coast guard who is sent to investigate a mysterious abandoned ship, along with a team of fellow officers. Naturally, it all soon goes to shit, and it's not long before you're the only one left to face the horrors alone. The action takes place from a third-person perspective and switches to first person upon drawing a weapon. Although being on board a storm-tossed ship adds a unique and at sometimes frustrating aspect to this part of the gameplay, it manages to raise the tension of each encounter as the ship violently sways from side to side, but as you progress through the adventure it does slowly subside. To counteract this though, there are many environmental elements such as explosive barrels, steam pipes and fire extinguishers, which act as handy traps to lure enemies into and can negate some of the more frustrating aspects of combat. Now visually, Cold Fear is one of the more impressive games on the system. From the waves crashing over the ship's side to the intricate detail lent to each and every character model, it's a true sight to behold. The overall adventure is quite generous when it comes to length, as well as offering 4 separate difficulty modes that will keep you coming back time and time again. So if it passed you by when it first released, I highly recommend you give Cold Fear a go. Dream Mix TV is the answer to a PS2 version of Super Smash Bros. Of course it differs mechanically to the game that clearly inspired it, but the general premise of bringing several well-known characters together to battle it out across a variety of different stages is at the core of Dream Mix as well. The actual manner in which these fights transpire is vastly different from Smash Bros though. At the start of each round, a giant orb shoots out dozens upon dozens of life coins. As the player, you must collect as many of these coins as possible, as they all affect your life bar. Characters in each fight, be there only 2 or up to 4, share the same life bar. The actual degree of stamina remaining determines where along the bar the icons which represent them will be. Stamina also relies on those coins. The more you collect, the further along the bar your character is, but it gets a bit more complicated than this. When one character takes out another, the victim suffers via a loss of life coins, the amount of which depends on the type of attack which was carried out, whereas a small tap will generate a scarce few coins of a small variety, powerful blows will let loose numerous coins of an enormous size. As with Smash Bros, the various stages you'll be fighting on are all based on the games that the characters come from. Each area has multiple levels to them, and hence the action is never restricted to a single plane. And if getting attacked on all sides wasn't bad enough, trouble arises in the form of several environmental hazards as well. If you're a fan of Smash Bros, you'll feel right at home with DreamMix TV, so if you're looking to try it out, I highly recommend you do. Grim Grimoire is the spiritual successor to an often overlooked gem on the PS2, Odin Sphere. It shares much in common with the original iteration, but instead of offering a side-scrolling action RPG, this time around it takes on a more slow-paced tactical approach to its gameplay. What remains intact though is the incredible art style that helped Odin Sphere stand out, and it has never looked so good. The immense range of characters and environments all receive the same loving attention to detail, which brings the world and the events that take place to life. Now you play as Lilith, who just so happens to exhibit tremendous potential for magic, and in particular something known as the Summon Arts. As a result, she is chosen to attend a magic academy and become a part of the Great Magic Practitioners Guild. The academy soon succumbs to an evil force, which prompts her to set out on an adventure to ultimately get to the root cause of the evil plaguing the land. Gameplay-wise, it sees you starting out at a specific location on the map, which takes place in the various hallways of the academy. Staircases allow for your non-flying units to move from floor to floor, with things like walls and holes providing natural barriers to those that are unable to fly through them or simply walk over them. Now the goal of a normal game is to completely eliminate all of the opposition, though in some story missions you'll get other goals as well, such as endurance matches for example. At first the controls can be a bit tricky, but after some time with the game you'll be taking on enemies with confidence and utilising each of your unit's strengths easily. Overall, Grim Grimoire is a great experience. It doesn't quite reach the heights of its predecessor, but it's still well worth playing. The PS2 is no stranger to quality shooters, but one that often gets overlooked is Espgaluda. It's developed by Cave, who are well known for their work within the genre, and presents one of the better experiences available on the system. It sees you selecting from two main characters who each slightly differ in their abilities. One of them packs more power and moves a bit more quickly, but their fire covers a smaller range. The other one is a little slower and weaker, but their fire covers almost the entire width of the screen when fully powered up. As you'll figure out whilst playing, there are actually both advantages and disadvantages to every aspect of these two characters, so trying out each of them is essential to find one that suits your style of play best. Now the game sees you going through 6 separate stages whilst taking advantage of several unique mechanics. One of them sees you having the ability to slow down time for brief periods, as long as you've collected enough gems that fallen enemies drop. But if you use this mechanic for too long and run out of gems, time will return to normal, but enemies' projectiles will actually increase in speed. It creates a constant juggling act that is bound to keep you on your toes. I think one of the main reasons why the game often gets overlooked is due to the difficulty it presents. At times your screen will be a constant blur of neon green and red due to the sheer amount of enemies that can appear on screen at any one time. But if you stick with it, it soon becomes one of the best in its class and provides one of the most satisfying feelings of accomplishment upon successfully completing a run. Fist of the North Star is a 2D fighter that is based on the popular anime of the same name. The game covers the first Fist of the North Star series, in which the main character Kasumi, the ever-wondering stoic warrior and practitioner of one of the deadliest martial art forms on the planet, wanders the wastelands of what once used to be Earth. Now the game shares a lot in common with Guilty Gear, and takes advantage of a few existing gameplay elements from the original franchise, whilst adding in a few new ones that it can call its own. For example, boosting can be performed in the game, but the gauge depletes each and every time you'll use it, naturally limiting the number of times you can perform it. To perform special moves you need to use Aura, which has 2 levels and is represented by blue and gold status bars. When filled to the max you can perform a deadly fist blow, which is similar to the instant kill moves from Guilty Gear. The nice thing about Deadly Fist Blow is it can combo in from normal or special attacks. Despite how great the game looks, the gameplay is what really impressed me the most. So if you're fond of fighting games, I feel Fist of the North Star will be right up your street. Heavenly Guardian is a shooter that sees players assuming the part of Sayuki, a young girl who sets out to find a cure for the boy she loves, who's suffering from a mysterious curse. Now, the narrative on face value seems quite cliche, but once you dig deeper into it, it actually becomes one of the best parts of the game. Complementing this is the gameplay that sees you having the ability to shoot in multiple directions as you traverse each level. You're accompanied by a pet rabbit who grants you a multitude of power-ups and special abilities that help deal with the onslaught of enemies you'll encounter along the way. But what truly stands out are the impressive boss encounters that are present throughout the adventure. Each of them are both meticulously designed both visually and mechanically, making each one just as daunting as the last. In order to clear them, you'll have to carefully study their patterns and adapt on the fly. And to top all of this off, the entire experience can be enjoyed with a second player as well. When playing in this mode, the second player will fill the part of the rabbit from the single player, and in my opinion is the best way to experience it. If you never got around to it, Heavenly Guardian is well worth picking up. Stellar Deus is a tactical, turn-based RPG that comes from Atlus. It sees players assuming the role of Sparrow and a princess who want to save the kingdom from a mystical force that has managed to spread across the world and destroyed most of its life. Whilst the narrative is not the best out there, it does offer several memorable moments, and everything leading up to the end is absolutely beautiful. But unfortunately, the ending is rather mediocre and may have the potential to sour the overall experience for many players. But what more than makes up for this shortcoming is the gameplay. The battle system is of course the strategy-based one, in which you command units across a map towards enemies. You can equip various weapons and armor and even items onto your characters, but every item carries a specific weight, and after a certain weight is reached, it will start affecting your overall proficiency in battle. This is where the AP system comes into play. AP is like MP or HP, only it replenishes every turn and it falls when you do anything on the field. If you're carrying too much weight, your AP will deplete at a faster rate, so it's a good idea to deck out your team evenly and not to overload them as much as you can. If you're extremely fond of strategy RPGs, Stellar Deus is well worth checking out. Way of the Samurai is an open-world action game following the life of a man known as Kenji. One of the best aspects is the absolute freedom you have whilst playing, and the influence your actions have on the story. This is further enhanced by the game's immense replay value, which it earns from the various titles, unlockables and endings that you can get, and is further supplemented by the game's New Game Plus mode. Now, combat in the Way of the Samurai is unique and quite fun. Like many action games, you have a light and strong attack, a block and a kick which is effective for breaking through enemy blocks. Each sword is beholden to a durability meter that illustrates how strong your sword is. The best thing about this is that it can be fully upgraded to make your favourite weapon last for longer. As you attack, your durability meter fills, with your opponent's blocks raising it faster, as does continually attacking, and once it fills you permanently lose a bar. Once all 3 bars are gone, the sword is lost for good. This adds a nice strategic element to each encounter, so you're not just swinging your sword randomly and getting through the game on a whim. It teaches the player that patience is always the best strategy. Overall, Way of the Samurai is a fantastic experience that in my eyes deserves a spot in every PS2 owner's collection. Well, that does it for today's video. Don't forget to hit subscribe and follow me on all of the socials to stay up to date on future videos. And as always, thanks for taking the time to check out this video. I will catch you next time.